Today, the Labor Party released the costings of its pre-election spending and claims it will find savings by cutting $6.4 billion from the cost of consultants and contractors in the next 4 years, plus a further $760 million by increasing student visa charges to $20,000. But look, since the beginning of this year, both sides of politics have pledged more than $30 billion in extra spending in their quest to win over voters, from bulk billing and Medicare to new roads in key electrics and on-call 24/7 health advice, plus Labor's $5 a week tax cuts and the coalition's cut the petrol excise and allowing first home buyers tax deductions on their mortgages. Well, the billions seem never ending. Well, today, though, came a wake-up call from ratings agency S&P Global. It says Australia's coveted AAA rating could come under pressure because of this spending. And it prompted these responses from either side of politics.
Now, if the ratings agencies are worried about spending and if they're worried about off-budget funds, we've demonstrated, we've found the room for our election commitments. The budget is stronger at the end of the campaign than it was at the beginning. But Peter Dutton is a big red flashing light when it comes to household budgets, when it comes to the national budget, and when it comes to the national economy in uncertain times.
I guess the point of the report is that Labor is reckless with taxpayers' money. They always spend, they always tax, and therefore that's why they've got an unrealised capital gains tax. Let's just think about that for a moment. So before you sell your shares or your house or your asset, it's gone up in value and you're going to pay tax on that before you sell it.
The author of that report is Anthony Walker, Director of Sovereign and International Public Finance at S&P Global Ratings, and he joins me now. Anthony, many thanks for your time. I mean, it just seems to me right now that both sides are spending tens of billions of dollars in this election campaign. Tell me, how real is the risk to the AAA credit rating?
Yeah, and that's why we published this report, Ross. What we are seeing is a lot of spending across both parties and minor parties as well, and we're really curious as to how it's going to be funded, and that's the real issue for us. Deficits of 2 to 2.5% of GDP are consistent with the AAA, but are they going to be there, or are they going to be more like 3 or 4% post-GFC levels? We don't know the answer to that yet.
So why do you not know the answer? You can see the spending that is potentially coming depending on how the parliament is formed after the election. Why is it you can't get a sense as to whether these deficits are bigger or less? Because you already know what the spending commitments are.
Yeah, it's really on the revenue side and how they're going to fund it. So we have seen some kind of indications by the coalition that they were going to cut 40,000 FTE to try and fund it. We don't know where they're sitting these days. No party seems interested in raising taxes. We are seeing tax cuts in the next 12 to 18 months from both parties. So the answer for us is there going to be additional taxes to cover it? Are they going to find internal savings? Or are they just going to keep debt funding it? And if they continue to debt fund it at 3 to 4% of GDP per year, that's when we start seeing net debt for the country rise rapidly, and that could become inconsistent with the AAA rating.
Well, the one thing we're seeing here is public spending as a percentage of GDP going up over 25%, whereas historically it's been below 20%. This really shows almost a centralisation of Australia's economy, and that's a worrying sign, I would have thought.
Yeah, it is one of the concerns that we have, and it's not just at the federal level. This is going across all the states as well. We did see, as you said, spending was around 20% of GDP for the last 40 years. What we're seeing now is it's around 26 to 27%. We knew it was going to be there during COVID, but most countries have started trying to pull that back to a long-term average. In Australia, there seems no discussion about that. So now we're seeing spending as a proportion of the GDP 5 or 6% higher than historical averages. And we're curious as to where the revenue is going to come to fund that extra 5% of GDP.
So historically, generally what happens is Australia gets lucky. There's a mining boom or there is suddenly very rapid economic growth. We know the long-term average is 3%, but right now it's jogging on barely above 1%, and it had been even lower than that previously. Is that the fundamental problem, that there's a lack of economic growth? And that, of course, comes back to government policy.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. It's spending as well as a pretty average economic growth. If you're running a deficit of 2% and the economy is growing at 2.5%, your actual debt to GDP is actually shrinking over time. What we're seeing, though, is that debt is rising probably around 2.5% to 3% going forward, if not more, depending on what the government does after the election. But economic growth, as you said, is 1 to 2%. So the whole overall debt burden for the society is actually rising. And that's the concern for us.